In 2013, the Texas Longhorns will win the Big 12. And in this video, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit why that's going to happen, or at least why it should happen. Now, it's weird for me to bring that up and for most people to hear that Texas Longhorns are going to win the conference, and for people to kind of taken aback and wonder, are you really sure about that? Because before 2009, every single season, the Horns were up there at the top as a contender to win the conference. Now, some would usually have, and they'd lose a game they shouldn't. Oklahoma would beat them or something like that, and they wouldn't make it. Before every season, it wasn't too far-fetched for someone to say the Texas Longhorns were going to win the conference. And this year, I feel that way is the same way, but for the last 3 years, it hasn't been that way. In 2010, my senior year at Texas, we went 5-7, didn't make a bowl game. It was one of the worst seasons in Texas Longhorns history. And it was kind of strange because 2008, 2009 were two of our best seasons. Of course, 2005 being one of the best, going back to like the 1960s and 70s. So, over these last 3 years, Texas has underachieved big time. And a lot of that's been done to recruit, coaching, mainly quarterback play, things of that sort. But this season, when you look at everything on paper, you look at what we've got coming back, there's no reason why the Texas Longhorns should not be the best team in this conference. Now, going back to last year, we won 9 ball games, including a Alamo Bowl win over Oregon State, which that's a solid bowl win, that's fine, but it's nothing that we're really going to hang our hats on about. But it did give us a little momentum going into the off season. But really, watching last season, winning 9 games, if you watched the videos last season, I was extremely hard on this football team after a lot of wins, too. And when you look back and you hear 9 victories, that's not a bad season. It's whatever. And I know at Texas standards, it's not Texas standards. But really the win total wasn't what really bothered me and a lot of Longhorns fans. It's the way those games played out. If you look at it as a whole, it looks, it's a team, it's growing or whatever. But when you watch game by game, games like Baylor, games like Kansas, where you look at those games and they were victories, but when you left them, you didn't feel like your team had gotten much better. And then you had some losses, of course, to TCU on Thanksgiving night, where we lost by a touchdown, but had absolutely no chance at winning that ball game. And then, of course, there was the West Virginia game, where at the time seemed like a very good loss at their playing back and forth. Then we saw what West Virginia was that season. And then, of course, the worst one being Oklahoma, where we got beat 62-21 or something like that, and the score doesn't even indicate that score is too close on what that game really was. One of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen from the Texas Longhorns. So how does a Texas Longhorns team that comes off a season like that, who really hasn't been relevant nationally for 3 years, how are they going to get back on the map this season? Well, mainly it goes to the fact of age. And this season, the Texas Longhorns, they've got 19 starters coming back. Now, part of that, of course, the cynical part of that would be, it's 19 guys who weren't any good last season, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But when you really look at it, Texas is filled with a lot of depth and a lot of talent. And the defense did get better near the end of the season, though not that they should have, because they couldn't tackle anybody in the first part of the year. But if you go on offense, just focusing on the offensive side of the football, we have all 5 offensive linemen coming back, including Espinoza and Mason Walters and the rest of the guys. This is the offensive line that Mack Brown wanted in 2010 when we tried to do this, what at the time they called a power running game, which never really got off the plate. But this year, I think we have the guys up front that maybe it's not going to be a power running game, but an effective running game. And that's what I want to see from Texas. Because Texas is not necessarily built on running through the tackles anymore. It's about speed. And in the backfield, that's what we've got. Jonathan Gray came onto the scene last year, especially against Texas Tech, and he's earned his spot, I believe, to be the starter there. You still got Malcolm Brown, who's an equally good back. You've got Joe Bergeron coming back. He's your bruiser. And then, of course, you've got the wild card in Dajae Johnson, who will probably play some wide receiver. We'll put him in the backfield. He'll probably be returning kicks as well. The dude's just an all-around star. And going to hopefully fill that void that Marquise Goodwin's going to leave, because Marquise, of all the problems we've had, Marquise was definitely a bright spot for this Texas Longhorns team while he was on the field. So you look at that part of the offense as well as on the outside. Mike Davis coming back, which was huge. There was a time where people thought, Mike was considering going to the NFL. He's going to stay for a senior year. And Jackson Shipley, who has been nothing but solid for the Texas Longhorns on the outside for those weapons. And then you go to quarterback, David Ash. A lot of people make fun of Ash. They say he's not that good of a quarterback. And to be fair, David Ash is not a superstar. He's not a Johnny Manziel. He's not a Colt McCoy. He's not a Sam Bradford. But he's a good quarterback. Problem with him has got to be consistency. And that was the problem I had with him last season was there were certain games, such as Texas Tech, where he was on fire, hitting his mark every single time. And then you had games like Kansas where it just didn't make any sense. He's also got to work on those red zone turnovers. That was one of the most frustrating things was driving the ball down the field and throwing a pick in the end zone. That can't keep happening. But David Ash is another year under his belt, and this season he is the unquestioned starter at the Texas Longhorns. And I think that's going to mean a lot for confidence and everything like that and for leadership. And the main thing about it, though, is we're not asking David Ash to be the superstar. Vince Young had to be the superstar. Colt McCoy was the superstar. This season, though, David Ash just needs to manage the game and get the ball to the athletes that he's got around him. At the same time, that's not a diss at David Ash. I personally believe David Ash is a very good quarterback and very capable of taking this team to a conference championship. So, but offense has really never been the issue, though, at Texas because we've gotten a little bit better last year. The main questions were on defense, which most of last season was nothing less than an embarrassment overall. But let's look at it again. Manny Diaz has another chance at it again, and we'll see if that pays off. He didn't have Jordan Hicks, our star middle linebacker, who really does control all of that in Manny Diaz's defense. Jordan Hicks will be back in the lineup. Jackson Jeffcoat got hurt early in the season. Jackson Jeffcoat is probably one of, if not the best pass rusher in the Big 12. That will be huge to have him back. Also in the secondary, we've got Carrington Bynum, Adrian Phillips, and Quandre Diggs all back. And it's going to be, I hate losing Kenny Vaccaro, but we've got a lot of talent and a lot of experience in the backfield. As I said, 19 guys are coming back overall. I believe it's 10 on offense and 9 on defense. That's more than anybody else in the Big 12. And in a conference that is full of questions throughout, Texas, at least before the season starts, has the least amount of questions they have to answer, at least when it comes to personnel. The questions they have to answer is execution and what they're going to do game by game. So why is Texas going to win the conference other than just looking at the roster? Well, once you have the roster in place, you look at the schedule that we have this season. And when you look at the schedule, it's not a schedule filled with showdown games. Other than Oklahoma, and really, if you look at the Oklahoma Sooners, who are supposed to be having a rebuilding season, though I don't buy that even if it's a rebuilding season, they're still a very dangerous football team, and I still think have a chance to win this conference as well. But other than Oklahoma, for various reasons, there's no one game on this schedule that pops up before the season starts as a showdown matchup for the Texas Longhorns. However, especially there at the first, there's a 6-game stretch of very losable games for the Longhorns. So one of the main reasons I'm saying the Texas Longhorns will win the conference is that I believe before the season starts, if we live up to the expectations we have, before every single game this year, the Texas Longhorns will be favored going into them. That being said, I look at most of these games, even though Texas may be favored to go in, I can go game by game and give a legitimate argument for why they might lose those games. And we can do that for a little bit right now. Week 1, New Mexico State, it's not a real game. That's a W. But then week 2, at Provo against BYU. Yeah, that's a dangerous one on the road against a strong team like BYU, who's dangerous at their own house. It's a game Texas should win, but it's a game no one's going to guarantee. Then you come home against Ole Miss, who Texas beat down pretty good last year on the road, but kind of like Texas, they had a lot of young guys coming back. They're going to be a much stronger, improved football team, and I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a tough game at home. Then you have K-State at home. Now, K-State's not going to be as good as they were last season, but it's still Kansas State, and it's still the Texas Longhorns. I don't know what it is about that team in purple, but every time we seem to play them, whether we've got Vince Young or Colt McCoy or whoever, and we may have a team ranked in the top 5, and they might not even be ranked, we have a hard time ever finding a way to beat that team. It's a psychological thing, and also it's a Bill Snyder thing, who's a great coach who knows how to use things to his advantage. So that's a tough one as well, and I think that's a very important game for Texas if they're going to be able to win that ball game. Now, the next one, though, and we have a bye week before this, may seem to some people as your lax game, the game you can kind of relax on because you know your team's going to win. for me, it's one of the scariest games of the season. It's a Thursday night ball game on the road in Ames against the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, I'm not going to sit here and talk about like what I think the Iowa State Cyclones are bringing to the table this season. I don't. I don't know much about the team. I do know, however, that they are a very strong team at home. And when you have a team like Iowa State, who historically is not a relevant football team on a national scale, if you give them the opportunity on a Thursday night at home against hopefully a top-tier team, definitely a top-tier program in Texas, and possibly a top-tier team if Texas is taking care of its business, you give them a chance, they have the opportunity to knock them off at home. They've done it before 2 years ago on a Friday night against Oklahoma State. So I don't put it past them to possibly knock us off as well. So that's one of those games that I'm going to be really interested to see how Texas responds, because that's a game that you could definitely overlook, especially being the week before OU. I really want to see if Texas comes out and blows Iowa State out of the water, not because of the team they did it against, but in the circumstances they did it in. That will give me a lot of confidence going in to OU. And speaking of Oklahoma, that really is the most important game of the season for many reasons. It's our biggest rival. It comes down to recruiting. But really, I have not seen, since Texas went the last time, Texas has not shown up with the same kind of intensity, the same kind of attitude as the Oklahoma Sooners. Last season, Oklahoma, and OU fans will tell you this, that was not one of their great teams last year. In a lot of ways, that team overachieved throughout the season. That team, however, had no business beating Texas the way they did. The way Texas showed up and the way they just got run over by Oklahoma was really one of the most embarrassing things I've been a part of and seen with for the Texas Longhorns. That thing needs to be erased at some point. I don't know whoever will be able to do that. That game, we'll see what Oklahoma brings to the table this year, but I don't care. That game, Texas should have more talent. They should have the better personnel, and they should win that game. And right now I'm going to say they are, but if we lose, I won't be surprised. Because what Bob Stoops has done in Norman has, not only has he created a great program, but he's really encapsulated that day and has talked to his players about how important that game is. Texas, I haven't got that from in the last couple of years, and it's shown on the scoreboard after the game. But that's another big one. And then, of course, ending that 6-game stretch on the road against a team I also believe will be up there for the conference title in TCU at Fort Worth. Now, the fact that it's on the road really doesn't bother me too much. Fort Worth, it's not really Horned Frog Central. There's actually more Texas Longhorns fans in the area probably than TCU. But TCU as a team, however, with Gary Patterson and those guys, that, however, is a good team. And they're going to have Casey Paul Hall back, but we saw what Boykin can do as well. So that's another dangerous football team with a strong defense, and that is a game. If I had to pick a showdown game before the season started other than Oklahoma, this would be it on the road against TCU. We'll see what they've done. We'll see what they did against LSU week 1. But TCU, I believe, will be a strong football team and a really true test for the Texas Longhorns, and that may possibly be the Longhorns' toughest game of the year. Then after that, you have Kansas, which I know we struggled with them last year. That should be a victory. If we do it again, that's its own problems. Then it's at West Virginia. West Virginia will be down from last season, but it's at Morgantown. That is a place, in that game, unlike the Fort Worth game, West Virginia at Morgantown, even though they won't be as good as they were last season, that home crowd does help that football team. And that is a very dangerous game for Texas on the road at Morgantown. Then you come back to Austin, you play Okie State. Once again, another team who will be up for the conference title. That, again, will probably be one of the toughest games of the season. I'm just glad it's at home against Oklahoma State. They got, in a lot of ways, they're a lot like Texas. They were a young team last year, and they've got a lot of those guys coming back this year. So that's another team. And in a lot of ways, a lot of experts have picked them to win the conference. And that makes a lot of sense. Then you hope to have Texas Tech at home on Thanksgiving. I don't think Tech's will be very good this year. It's Kingsbury's first season, but I say that, but really, they're probably the biggest mystery of the entire conference, which is Texas Tech. Michael Brewer's kind of banged up. He's the guy supposed to come in, but apparently they're pretty high on the backup as well. Kingsbury, I know he's re-energized that fan base, that team. It's like having Mike Leach Jr. out there. But he's got pelts on the wall from where he's coached. He coached at Houston, had a great offense. He was the offensive coordinator at A&M with Johnny Manziel in that group. They were one of the best offenses in the country. He's going to fit right. He knows Lubbock. He is Lubbock. So that part of it's going to be interesting to see how that program builds. I don't think they'll be ready to go season 1 with Kingsbury. Thanksgiving night, Texas. Hopefully they'll be more energized than they were against TCU last year, but that's what we got from there. That's home rule in that one. And then we end the year at Baylor. This is one of those games that is also I see as also a very dangerous matchup here with the Baylor Bears. One, Bryce Petty is supposed to be a very good quarterback. Art Briles, since he's been there, they've had great offenses. Their defense probably won't be any good like they weren't last year, but they will be able to score. But also, and maybe people outside of Texas don't know about this, but Baylor is building a brand new campus. It's pretty much the building that RG3 built. But this will be the last game at Floyd Casey Stadium, a place we usually call DKR North, but it'll be the last game at home for them ever for them moving the last season until their new stadium. That in and of itself is a factor in the game. You've got a team that can move the ball, a team that is good on offense, and then you have that added motivation of it being Texas and it being the last home game at Floyd Casey. That's going to be a historical night no matter what happens, but I guarantee that right there is the most important game for the Baylor Bears all season. If they win that game, I believe that fan base and that team will take the whole season as an accomplishment. So going through the schedule, you kind of see what I'm saying. Should Texas win all these games, at least on paper? Yes, they should. But as I go through them, you can kind of see how almost every single one of them can be a loss. So I'll conclude it by saying that, and then of course I don't know where Texas would go from there. My final prediction, I believe, is that Texas will win the Big 12 and that they will be in a Fiesta Bowl. I don't think Texas will go undefeated. There's a loss in there somewhere, maybe 2. But I don't think any team in the conference is going to go undefeated this season. I think it's a strong it's a competitive conference. I think it is a strong conference. It's not the SEC, and I think the Pac-12 will be stronger this year as well. But it's a very competitive conference with a lot of pitfalls for a lot of teams, including the Texas Longhorns. But when you look at it as a whole, Texas has the most guys coming back. They should have the most talent. And really, and we'll see if this pays any dividends, they should have the most motivation. They should be sick and tired of being made fun of in their own state and in this conference that they've been one of the top tier teams in for so long. Many of you may have already seen it, but a current student at UT put together a YouTube video, a pump-up video for kind of season preview to get everybody excited for the season that had a lot of truth to it, and I'll put the link to it below. But the theme really is, it's not a rah-rah video of, yeah, here comes the season, we're going to win every game. It's pretty much the mentality is trying hard doesn't cut it at Texas. And that's kind of been the mentality the last couple of years is we look at games, even as a fan, they play hard, they lose, and in certain situations I'd be like, well, they played hard. That's not how Texas runs. That's not what Texas was built on. Texas was built on excellence. Texas was built on competing for a championship every single year and always being at the top of your game. And it hasn't been that way for 3 seasons. To me, this is the season we get back on track and the Texas Longhorns become relevant nationally this season. But we'll see what happens because they've got the horses to do it. Do they have the execution? Do they have the pride to get it done? I think they do. It'll be fun to watch them. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So, we got a week away. New Mexico State's week 1. No one will be able to watch it because it's on Longhorn Network, but they'll win that game. And then the real season starts in Provo in 2 weeks. So, hook 'em horns, Texas fight, and here's to hopefully a great season in Austin. See you guys later.